Good morning, students, and welcome back to science class. Today we're going to be doing Inquiry 3.3. So we are going to be investigating regeneration of blackworms. Now you will start this lab today, January 19th, and you will be not turning this lab in though until about 4 weeks from now. This lab will be due in a couple of weeks on February the 9th. So for each Tuesday for the next 4 weeks, we will be coming back to this lab and coming back to our blackworms and making some measurements. Okay, so you're going to be watching this video today and completing your lab report with Cami. So you can click right here to open your assignment with Cami, and it will open your lab report. Before we get into the lab report, let's take a live view of our blackworms this morning. And you can see here they are, still active and live and going strong here in the classroom. And hopefully you will be back in the classroom soon and you can come and see them in person. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the blackworms. We've already measured their pulse rate in the last lab. We've looked closely at their different body structures, and it's kind of unique that they are very small and basic, but at the same time, if you're comparing them to other things that we would look at under the microscope, they have some more complex body systems. You know, they have that circulatory system, they have that blood vessel running through. Although they don't have a heart, they still have the blood running through that blood vessel, that closed tube. They also have a digestive system. They have that digestive tract where the food moves through their body from the head end through to the tail end. And today we're going to focus more on a few other features about them. Some of their behaviors and some of their other means of living. A lot of times the blackworms, like I've told you before, are found on the edges of creeks and rivers and ponds. They live in fresh water. They do not live in salt water. And a lot of times what they like to do is just sit very still and hold their little heads up, the head end up, where their head end can kind of poke out of the top of the water. They might perch up on a rock, they might be on the surface of the pond or creek or river, they might be on top of a leaf or something like that, but they stay very still because they don't want to attract predators. And so they have some unique behaviors, the way they swim, the way they move, when they feel like they're under attack, like right here. You see I just barely get close to some of them and they start making that really quick reflex jerking motion, as you might notice there. Okay, there are some unique things that the blackworms do, and we're going to be reading about them in our next reading selection. But one of the characteristics about them we're going to focus on today is reproduction. Okay, so before I spoil our hypothesis, let's go back to our lab report. Our question today is, how do California blackworms reproduce? Okay, so for your hypothesis, you would say, I believe California blackworms reproduce by blank because blank. Okay, now what we're looking for here is for you to describe how you think they reproduce. Do you think that they lay eggs? Do you think they give birth to live young? Or do you think that some other process might take place? So pause for a second and think about it and fill in your hypothesis before we go further. Okay, now that you've thought about your hypothesis, let's move forward with our lab. The materials for this lab are found on page 41. The procedures for this lab are found on page 47 to 48. Okay, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be collecting some data about our blackworms. Now, I didn't tell you this earlier because I didn't want to spoil your hypothesis, and hopefully you did your hypothesis before you've moved forward with this video. But blackworms have several ways to reproduce. One of those ways is through sexual reproduction, where they produce eggs. And the other way that they reproduce is through asexual reproduction, where they are going to just do what's called fragmentation, where their body breaks into pieces. Now, sometimes this fragmentation is brought on by them trying to escape from a predator. Just like, if you think about a lizard, if you tried to grab a lizard by the tail, its tail might break off and it can regrow a new tail. That's called regeneration. Well, blackworms have a very interesting characteristic in which they can fragment their body, and each body section can regrow whatever is missing. So, like, for example, if it lost the head end and all that was left was the tail end could grow a new head. Or vice versa, if it was the head end that was left over and the tail end got taken away, it could grow a new tail end. So this fragmentation and regeneration is a type of asexual reproduction where it can regrow lost body parts. So I'm going to switch over to the camera view again, and we're going to perform fragmentation. Now don't worry, this is not going to hurt the blackworm. We're going to take basically one blackworm and make 3 from it. So I'm going to turn over to the webcam. Now I already have taken one blackworm using the pipette and put it on this petri dish, and I'm going to place that right here where you can see, and I'm going to get a little bit more liquid from the container, and I'm going to scoot the blackworm more over here towards the middle of the petri dish. There we go. We got a little air bubble right here. Okay. All right. Now, as you can see, I'm looking at it closer with my hand lens to magnify it. There we go. Okay, he's moving around a little bit, but he's staying pretty still. So I'm going to take this little piece of basically just really thin plastic film, and we're going to use this as our fragmenting tool. Okay, and I'm going to take this blackworm and turn it into 3 blackworms. So I'm going to fragment it here. See, there we have now 2. And I'm going to fragment it here. Okay, there we go. Now we have 3 separate worms, and all the pieces are still alive. None of the pieces are dead. They're all still alive. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to measure each one of the pieces. And I'm going to use something similar to the fragmenting tool. I'm going to use this little ruler, this little transparent ruler, and we're going to measure. We're going to call this piece, piece 1, and that one will be used for class 701. We're going to do this piece as piece 2, and we'll use it for class 702. And then this piece we'll call piece 3, and we'll use that for class 703. Okay, what I'm doing is trying to straighten them out where I can measure them easier with my ruler. And I thought for a second I had lost my ruler, but I had sat it under the container. Okay, let's measure piece number 1. Fragment number 1 is about 1 centimeter. Fragment number 2 is about 0.9 centimeters. And fragment 3 is about 0.9. So whichever class you're in, if you're in 701, then go with fragment 1, which was 1 centimeter. If you're in 702, then you will use the measurement 0.9 centimeters. And if you are in 703, you will use fragment 3, which is 0.9 centimeters. Okay, and I'm going to flip back over to our lab report for just a moment. And so you would put today's date here, and so I'm going to type that in. Today is, well, the day you'll be doing this lab is January the 19th of 2021, and if you're in 701, you would put a length of 1 centimeter. If you are in 702, you would put a length of 0.9 centimeters. And if you're in 703, you also will be doing a 0.9. So y'all don't have to put 3 measurements on your particular data table unless you want to keep up with all 3. If you want to keep up with all 3, that's fine. But I'm keeping up with all 3 because I'm in charge of all 3 classes, and I want to make sure I have everybody's data. So 701, 1 centimeter, 702, yours was 0.9, and 703, yours was 0.9. So now to find out number of segments, I'm going to go back to our webcam view here, and let me show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this Petri dish and place it on the microscope. And I'm going to turn our view here so you can see the microscope stage. And I'm going to be measuring fragment number 1. I'm going to be seeing how many segments it has, and this is going to be an estimate because it's a lot. Let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 42, 44, 46, 48, 50, 52, 54, 56, 58. I'm going to say 58. And again, that is an estimate. That's probably not exact because it's hard to be able to keep up with an exact amount. But fragment 1, yours had 58 segments to it. Okay, now I'm going to look at fragment 2. Okay, fragment 2. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 42, 44, 46, 40. I'm going to estimate like 49. Again, it's kind of difficult to measure this, but I'm doing the best I can with it. So don't worry, these are always, when we do this, they always have to be estimates. So we'll make the best of what we got here. Okay, and then fragment 3. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 42, 44, 46, 48. I'm going to say about 52 for that one, because its little tail is kind of curled up behind him and it's not stretched out real good. So I'm going to go with 52 for that one. Okay, so now let me come back over here where you can see I jotted down those measurements. Let's go back to our data table. Okay, for a number of segments,